Just now, it turns out that Woody actually knew Stormy Daniels back in the day. I don't know. It's a bit of a scandal. We haven't gotten to the bottom of this yet. I don't know. Everybody, don't ask, don't tell, Woody. That's what I say. But anyway, listen, I'm really excited to be here because this is a key moment. This is a key moment in what we're doing. So what we're doing as a country, the corner we're turning as a culture. I mean, New York Myke mentioned business. He mentioned kind of military. You put Mad Dog Mattis in over there. They don't even talk about it. Mattis just kills everybody. Mattis is the Marine that the Marine that got there and he said, have a plan. Be nice to everybody, but have a plan to kill them. That's what Mattis. If you want to go to war, you go to war, right? If you want to have a social experiment, you start a business or a social work thing. So Mattis got in, and Trump, you remember Trump when he ran for office? I'm getting off my speech. I got to get back to it, but I got to on it first. When Trump was running, he said, it doesn't make any sense to me that you announce in 3 days we're going to invade your town. They empty the town out, you invade, and then after you're gone, they all come back. And if you notice, when he got in office, he said to General Mattis, go and destroy ISIS. And I don't know if you notice this. You got to think about it. You got to stop and think about it. You see ISIS putting videos up on YouTube? No. You see ISIS doing press conferences? No. There was a rumor at one point ISIS was going to take a bus hostage of people that were leaving a safe area. And the word went out that if they took them hostage and ISIS was on there, they'd blow the bus up with them all in it. Because this is war. Either you go to war or you don't go to war. And Mattis has gone to war. And you don't brag about war. For all of the things they accuse him about, he actually doesn't brag about a lot of stuff. He's got North Korea on their knees. They're not eating dog over there. They're eating dirt. They're starving to death. Not because we don't like people. We love people. But because if you want to have a nuclear weapon and be our mortal enemy, then we're going to go to war with you. And Trump's not bragging about that. He's not bragging about that. So anyway, listen, I'm glad to be here because this is an important time. And Andea Faye, who hosts a great radio show on The Answer San Diego, yeah, she's coming over as soon as her show's over. I hope you support her. She's a next generation of folks that are in this movement, right? My show is called The Movement. I was on the National Party. I was on the RNC. New York Myke, you wouldn't believe it. I mean, you say how terrible and how silly the parties are. It was ridiculous. I mean, they threw good cocktail parties, but otherwise they didn't really care what was going on. But I was on the National Party. I was chairman of the Missouri Party. I ran for office. I've been involved in lots of different ways. I litigated cases. I'm a lawyer. Don't hold that against me. I litigated cases against Blagojevich because he was trying to make pro-life people. Pro-life pharmacists and pharmacy owners dispense RU-486. I think so. I've been in the fight for a while. But what happened when Donald Trump ran for office is that he became the leader of a movement. The movement actually started with the Tea Party, and really it started with the financial crisis. And the movement is basically this. For many hundreds of years, 200 and some odd years, people like New York Myke, people in America, they knew if you worked hard and made your way, you'd get your chance. Nothing was guaranteed. Nobody guaranteed when he sold his first bike he'd have the biggest bike shop in the world. But that you knew in America, the American dream was accessible to everybody. And around the time that Obama went in office, the bailouts happened, the stimulus happened, all these giveaways, the American people started to say pretty clearly, the game is rigged. It's rigged. It's a racket. And the racket's being run against we the people. And so starting with the Tea Party, but culminating with some strange bedfellows, the Bernie Sanders people, they knew it was a racket. They knew that Hillary had it rigged. I can tell you, I was on the party. The game was rigged. I was on the Republican Party. The primary process was rigged. It is still rigged. I won't tell you who. I'm sure there's press. I hope there's press here. And I can't say. I never say. I like to say things off the record that I expect will be quoted the next day. That's how that works. But I'll say this: senior officials of the Republican National Committee, to this day, making money on the side. It's a slush fund. It's a racket. New York, Mike, I mean, I grew up in Jersey. I live in St. Louis now for 25 years. But you can't, if you grow up in Jersey, you grow up in New York, you never really get to be from anywhere but Jersey or New York. I mean, it's just the way it is. And so in New Jersey, where I was from, I mean, they did do Sopranos. There was some, you know, some of my parents' friends resembled some of the Sopranos folks, you know, worked in trash, had lots of big houses. But the point is, it's a racket at the party. It's a money laundering scheme that enriches a class of people that aren't in this room. The class of people aren't smart. They're just connected to power. They run data companies, they run consulting companies, they run lobby shops, they make money hand over fist. It's a racket. But the American people looked up and they said, wait a second, this is a racket. And thus began a movement that we're still in today. And when Trump went down that escalator, he engaged the American people where they were. In Missouri, he won by 19 points. He was polling the day before the election to win by 4. Because the polls were all wrong. Because the American people were, the media, even then, as you remember it now, they're beating on the people. Don't you think he's uncouth? Don't you think he's too rough? Don't you think he's this? Don't you think he's a bad husband? Don't you think this? And the American people are sort of, and this is where I was going to start. Who here has been in a room with a new friend or someone you knew and they said, are you really for Trump? Who's been in there? Raise your hand. Are you really for Trump? Right? That's what people say because of what the media's done and all sorts of things. But you know what Trump did about that? He didn't care. He didn't care. He didn't say, I'm running to be the best husband you've ever seen. He admitted he wasn't a good husband, at least twice. He didn't say he was running to be the perfect businessman. What he was a guy who was going to fight on our team. Team America. Team America is every man who served, whether you're a Marine or a Coast Guard guy, whether you're a reservist or active duty, whether you're in a war or not in a war. Team America is people that want a job, that want to get better, that want education, and some that don't, that are confused, that are a mess. Team America is everybody. The other side's team is only made up of 2 groups. One is the special interests that make lots of money off of what we're doing. They run the racket. They're racketeers. It's just an old-fashioned, you know, organized crime syndicate, whether it's the Democrat Party, Republican Party, the party in Washington, I mean the people in Washington. But the other group is the progressives, the liberals, the Democrats. And you know who Nancy Pelosi cares about first? I'm not really sure about this. Maybe her, but I'm not really sure of the order. But I can tell you who's not. I'll just say the general order is about like this. Illegal immigrants, top of her list. Lesbian, gay, transgender people, top of her. Second, maybe women in there, women, Me Too. Maybe, you know, down the line, pick a topic. And you know who's not getting any real help? Substantive real help is working Americans. People that are working, trying to make a living. And you know who's also not getting real help is African Americans. The Democrat Party, when the President of the United States, now President, said, how could you do worse? I live in St. Louis. Every year we sentence about 4,000 students to a life of less than, you know, good possibilities in our St. Louis public schools. And they're all black and brown. Not all, they're mostly black and brown. But anyway, but Trump went down the escalator, and what he did was he said, I'm just going to be who I am. I'm not going to be perfect, and I'm going to show you I'm going to fight for your side. And I wrote this book. So I wrote a book right before the election, which is called The Conservative Case for Trump. And it was a New York Times bestseller. It was a great book. It came out right before. And I was working on the Trump campaign like Woody was doing in California and Don was doing in California. I hope all of you were doing in California, wherever you were. And we're all working because we knew it was at stake. But I recall vividly going up to New York to do interviews on the book. And people saying up there, you know, it's not possible. They say, you know, he's not going to win, right? I remember saying, well, you know, I just think there's something going on in this country, in Missouri and other places. I think there's something going on. I think people want somebody on their side. I think people want, and everybody said it's not possible. Then he won, and for the whole first year, all you heard about was things other than what he was doing. And I started to get towards Thanksgiving, and I said, no one's really laying out what he's done. What he's actually done, what he's done, not just the tax cuts. The tax cuts are fine. I think someone complained about the tax cuts. I did too. I opposed the tax cuts initially on the air until Trump came to St. Charles, Missouri, and he gave a speech. And my 4 kids were there. My wife is there. He gave the speech, and when I finished, I said, I trust him. He said, we need the tax cuts. Said it's got dog meat in it, it's swampy, but we need the tax cuts for our businesses to be competitive with the rest of the world, for our economy to get going. And I said, I trust him. So if you're looking, Trump's doing that right. So I wrote this book, and I hope you got a copy of it. Someone, a great supporter of the president, called me up and said, I want to buy 7,500 copies of the book. He bought 7,500 copies, shipped them right to my office, which is a bit of a problem because it's a lot of books. But we've got them to give away. So take one for yourself, take one for your neighbor, and use it as a tool. On the back, there's a quote. I forget. There's a great quote from Roger Stone. You guys know Roger Stone. Use Can't Trump this 2017 like garlic or a stake through the heart of never Trumper zombies, Antifa thugs, and the deluded of the resistance. So use the book. Use the book. But let me tell you that I said we're in a movement, okay? We're in a movement now, and it's not stopping. If you think we did great and we're doing fine, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. We're in a movement, and we've got to double down. And the left is not just ginned up because they're worried about all the things they're losing, but they're paid up. I started to say to New York Myke about this just a second ago. It's a cultural fight, too. People get so upset. I was on a radio show, and they said, how can you possibly list number 27 or whatever it is, saying Merry Christmas? What a joke. Other people say Merry Christmas. And I said, it's not about saying the words Merry Christmas. It's about being politically incorrect enough to be fearless for what we are as a Judeo-Christian people. Amen. Europe is going down the hopper. In 10 more years, you won't recognize Europe because they decided that open borders and unlimited Muslim immigration is okay, and they don't care about their cultures, so you can't go to certain neighborhoods in London because they're run by the Muslim community. And if that's what you like, go to Europe. But America didn't want that. We don't want that. So Trump's politically incorrect. It's extraordinary what he does with the media, with everything. But we're in a movement, and it's not okay to stop. Let me tell you about Friday, okay? And if somebody's here, who's upset about the omnibus spending? Okay, good. I was disappointed too. I thought maybe he's going to veto it. He's going to come out and veto it and like spike it, drop the mic, maybe light it on fire, burn something down. I just thought it could be total chaos. And then he came out and he grumpily signed it and all. But here's what you have to do. You have to never turn disappointment to despair. If you despair, you're dropping out. Be disappointed. That's fine. But here's what's going to happen between now and the fall, okay? Who in the room knows how long the spending bill is for?
6 months.
6 months. What's the date that it expires?
September 30th.
What happens 6 weeks after September 30th? An election. And most Americans, including me, can't keep their attention span for more than about a half an hour. So by September, when the president says, I'm never signing, remember he said in the signing, I'm never signing it again. Then on his Twitter feed, I'm never signing one of these again. And we all said, well, what's the deal? I'll tell you in a minute what's the deal with that. It has to do with Mattis. But now he said he's not going to sign again. So what's going to happen September 30th? And here's what I predict. I predict that Trump will shut down, allow the Democrats to shut down the government over the illegals. Because that's the place where the left will go so crazy. They can't stop themselves, the left. They don't really care about the wall. Because think about it. If you build a wall, eventually, if you get a Democrat president, they just say, knock down the wall, or don't kick in the wall, or let people through the wall, or let them climb over. What they don't want is the law changed on chain migration and on the racist visa lottery. And for people that say we're an immigrant country, agree with them. We are, of course. But to say we should act like an immigrant country from 100 years ago is to pretend that we're going to go back and stop using bullets and just use, swords, right? We're at a different moment in history when we're not the same kind of immigrant people. We're not going to have the same kind of policies we had. But so back to this disappointment. Don't let your disappointment turn to despair. So it's too much spending, but what's in it? What's in it is massive military spending. Who sees massive military spending and Trump and says to themselves, oh, shoot, this is looking more and more like Reagan. This is a guy that doesn't pay attention to what the norms are. He's just going to be in charge. North Korea, that guy, look, Kim Jong-un, he's running around in circles now trying to find a way out of this. He's going to deliver the nukes. He's going to send them by Amazon, deliver the nukes to get out of this because he knows Trump is starving his people and himself, and it's not going to, Trump's already said it's not going to end well. And so Kim Jong-un is like, they just gave him all that money for the military? And the Chinese went, they just gave him all that money for the military? And Iran just went, they gave him all that money. Trump's got more submarines, more ships, more. And Trump said, that's what I did it for. And Paul Ryan, who I'm no fan of Paul Ryan's approach. There's a rumor today that he's stepping down. The only problem with him stepping down is he's doing it to get out of the way of the freight train that's coming. But that's a different problem. But here's the thing. Paul Ryan said, this budget is what Mattis asked for in terms of the military. All else dog meat gets thrown on these things. I'm not defending it, I'm just saying the disappointment. But here's what happens between now and September 30th. Clarify your mind. Clarify your mind. Clarify your mind. Everybody pay attention? Justice Kennedy's going to resign in June, okay? Supreme Court, it's going to clarify your mind. Do you care about babies? Do you want Roe v. Wade reversed? Okay, if you want it reversed, it's not going to happen if we sit around and say to ourselves, boy, hey, put on your Rose Law Firm colored glasses. That's the Rose Law Firm where the first female partner in the Rose Law Firm was Hillary. Put on your Rose Law Firm glasses and say to yourself, what would it be like if we had Hillary Clinton as president, right? But so back to my point. Kennedy's going to resign, and that's going to be key, okay? And then all the American people that aren't like you, that are in this room because you care about it, are going to look up and they're going to do the same thing they did with Scalia. When Justice Scalia died, it was one of the great tragedies. It was one of the great tragedies. I will tell you the story about how smart Phyllis Schlafly was. She was 92 when she died. She'd been involved in politics and public life for 70 years. When I called her on Saturday night, I said, Justice Scalia died, and she said, wow. And she said, you realize what's now deadlocked? I had no idea. Is that union case, that 4-4 union case. He was the fifth vote. It would have been 5-4, and that, it may still be decided right now, but that union case was billed. That was a case that was going to be, and that was the first thing she thought of. But not the first thing, she thought of his family and all, but it was right in her mind. She was thinking about the politics of it, what was going to happen, and why it mattered. Why it mattered. So Scalia dies. You know, in the 2016 election, people said to me, why did pro-life Catholics and evangelical Christians vote so clearly for Trump by such margins? Was it fear of Hillary? Maybe, right? But we should have had fear of Obama. I mean, Barack Hussein Obama. There was a number of things you could have engaged in, and they didn't quite get there. And why? Because Scalia's death clarified for people, someone's going to pick. Someone's going to pick the direction of the Supreme Court. Trump or Hillary? Yeah, I'll go with Trump. So Trump's going to get a Justice Kennedy pick, okay? That's going to happen. North Korea is going to happen. They're on their knees now. And we're going to denuclearize a nation because we actually had leadership. George Washington, right? Not just like, I don't know, Bill Buckley or whoever you want to quote that's really cool. George Washington said, if you want peace, you have to have a big enough military that everybody knows, I'm paraphrasing by the way, knows it. And that's how you have peace. They have to see it. Oh, sorry. He said you have to have a big enough military that everybody, that is big enough to beat everybody, and they see it. You know, deterrence is that they go, yeah, I don't really want to take that guy on. And that's what Trump's doing. And now the next thing I have to tell you, understand. I went on the radio immediately. I did a blast email. We pounded away in favor of Qualcomm and blocking the Broadcom deal. Because, not just because I like San Diego, not just because, but China, clarify your mind, is actually our enemy. They're a communist nation. Now remember when people told us, listen to this, this is the jive we got from the Bushes. Remember, the Bushes, when President Bush the first was over in China as ambassador in the 70s, everybody went, China's really cool, isn't this great? Let's normalize relations with China, okay, this will be great. And we go all the way forward, and George W. Bush, 3 or 4 months after 9/11, allows China to become fully in the World Trade Organization, which meant there's no place to fight China head-to-head. You had to go to the bureaucrats in Europe to get a fight in terms of trade, okay? But here's what they said would happen when we started to let them in the 90s. They said, it'll work wonders. When trade happens there, people get more democratic, and it'll become a wonderful place. Last week, the guy, President Xi, became president for life. There's not much democracy growing there, and they're communist, and they're against us, and guess what? We have 300 million people. 300 million, 330, I don't know, I'm not good with math. But they have 1.3 billion. Like, they have a lot of people. And they think in the long term, they are our enemy. If you don't like enemies, if you don't like good versus evil, and the parties all changed, right? The Republican Party has changed. Let me finish with this, and I'm happy to take questions. And Andea Faye is supposed to be coming over, so hopefully she'll get here. But I'll take questions. But let me finish with this. Last week in Chicago, Nancy Pelosi, Bernie Sanders, all the lefties went after one of their own in the primary. I think his last name is Lipinski. He's the last pro-life Democrat. Okay? Hear me, I mean, you hear what I'm saying. I mean, you know this in California, but they actually have said, he won, that Lipinski held out and held the seat by a few thousand votes. But then there was this hand-wringing afterwards. The feminists rose up, the people rose up, and they said, this can't be the Democrat Party. It cannot tolerate people that are pro-life. We can't have it. Cardinal Dolan, who's originally from St. Louis and is now in New York, said in a column yesterday, I'm sorry to have to tell you, my grandmother would turn over in her grave, but the Democrats are against the Catholics now. I mean, that's a big break for Dolan's been kind of in between, but the fact is that if you care about life, and by life I mean life at conception, but life at the end of life, if you care about life meaning, there are things we're willing to die for, and men like Larry did that, right? There are things we're willing to die for because we believe how incredible life is and what everlasting life will be like. But fundamentally, guys like Larry did it because America was on the side of righteousness. People won't die for a corrupt racket. They won't. And that's why no matter what you think of everything he does, anything he does, whatever, the Lord turned and shined his face on us in November of 2016. There's no other explanation for what Trump did and how it happened. So I'm happy to take questions. I think Mike's going to try to get the mic back. Mike, are you trying to get it back? That's your mic, so you, like Reagan said, it's my mic. Questions, yes, sir.
You think we're going to keep the house or lose it?
We're going to keep the house. I'm going to make sure we keep it. So I think if we look, these guys, you don't understand. I ran in 2010 for Congress. One of the most important things you can do is run for office and lose. Because your husband lost once, right? When you lose, you clarify in your brain how it works. If you win, you think you're a genius. You're like, oh, look at me, I'm a genius. And I lost, and I learned. Phyllis Schlafly used to say that. She ran twice for Congress, once when she was 28, once when she was 50, and you lose. I can tell you right now, this is the choppiest election cycle we've seen, and it's not settled out. It really hasn't. I actually think not to take my disappointment past disappointment to despair. I do think the president's spending omnibus was really confusing for the base. Until then, I would have said, people looked up in America and they said, Trump seems to be fighting for us. I'm okay with that, even if there's all this other noise. Schumer and Pelosi are for illegals. You know, Schumer and Pelosi for the status quo. But so it's a little confusing because that omnibus spending is such a swamp mess. But I think it'll get clearer. And here's the thing. Just trust Trump, don't trust me. Trump was out on the stump, October of 2016. He used the phrase, drain the swamp. Now, these fools that are on TV, I should tell you, I was for 4 months on CNN. CNN hired me to be a TV guy. I was on with Anderson Cooper 3 or 4 nights a week. They'd fly me up to New York, put me in a big hotel, dancing girls. No, they didn't do that, but they had me in the hotel. And I'd be on every night with Anderson Cooper. And I was the only guy, I was the Jeffrey Lord character. I was in Jeffrey Lord, the seat, you know, he was a pro-Trump guy. And I just sit in the middle and I just get beat on by all the Democrats and all. And they really are delusional. Yeah. They don't really know. They're like, you really believe this? Is this possible? Do you really? But they're really delusional. But they're very powerful, right? The drumbeat of CNN is very powerful. And we have, so Trump, so this is, I went to see Jeff Zucker. Jeff Zucker is the head of CNN who ran NBC when Trump was at The Apprentice. So I went into Jeff Zucker's office. He hired me to be this commentator, contributor. And I said, hey, Mr. Zucker sits down and I said, you know, hey, so what was Trump like? You know, what was he like on Apprentice? And he said he was an animal. He was obsessed with ratings. He worked so hard to figure out how to make it a success. So like, okay, so he's a success in real estate, he's a success in branding, he's a success in TV, he's a success, right? So people that think he's a 71-year-old who shoots from the hip are crazy. They're crazy. He's one of the master marketers we've ever seen. Trust me, people that transfer from non-politics into politics think it's going to be great. It's never very good for them. Ask Michael Huffington when he tried that out here, remember years ago. He spent a fortune on it. But Trump spent all this time, so Trump knows how these things work. And when he was on the stump, he said, drain the swamp. The crowd went crazy. later he was interviewed and he said, I thought that was kind of a funny phrase, but that one was the one that took off the fastest, because back to my point, people know it's a racket. And so drain the swamp. You don't want to be a Republican or Democrat in the swamp, and that's the thing. So what I think is coming in the fall, if we frame it right, is the swamp versus us. And I think you're going to see guys that shouldn't win as the thing breaks. And it won't matter until about, Newt Gingrich did the Contract for America about 6 weeks before, right? There's a part of this where we're going to be choppy, and then you're going to see the thing break. And we've got to do it. We've got to do it. Somebody had a question over here, yeah.
I don't really have a question, I have a comment. You said that the decision's going to be made.
I only take questions.
In November, but it's June. California matters in June.
Well, okay.
So we need the rest of the country to come fight here in California.
Good point. Good point. The primaries are where a lot of these battles are won. You're right, and so I take that to heart. That it's especially in California, because by the time you get to the general, in a lot of cases, it doesn't matter. So that's fair. And I will say that Woody Woodrum was big with Trump campaign, because when California was already out of reach, Woody had all of you making phone calls on behalf of Trump in other states. So fair point. And I take it to heart. Yes, sir, Larry.
Hey, Ed, question for you. Everybody here is very ecstatic about the idea of draining the swamp.
Yes, sir.
How many of those claw marks on the way down the drain are going to have cars by their name?
Most of them.
Yep.
Look, here's the thing. Listen to this. Listen to this. I haven't gotten to the bottom of this. There's Andrea Kay. She's cool. Hi, Andrea. How are you?
Not as cool as you, baby.
So listen to this. This is very important. Do you know there's a slush fund in Washington, paid for by the Congress, that has gone to $17 million for anyone in the Congress who assaults, harasses, or something else as someone? I don't know. It's a secret fund that was appropriated during the era of Gingrich, and it's been paying out $17 million. 260 incidents of something like assault. We don't know. We can't tell. People getting paid. People getting paid. I assume lawyers getting paid. I don't know, other people getting paid. $17 million. And you know why it's not out publicly? Because it's R's and D's too, right? The swamp is just swamp. There's no, you got an S next to your name from the swamp, and there's lots of R's and D's. But we've got to be fearless to take those guys. Take them all. I mean, take them all. You can't be afraid to take them all. But what I'm trying to say, what I'm trying to encourage you, and I'll ask Andrew to come up and tear the roof off the place even more. But what I'm trying to say is this, is that never before in politics, and not just because of the technology, but never before in politics, and New York Myke, I think, would agree, even in sales and in living together, have we been in a time where things move faster. They just whip back and forth. By the way, I don't know, I can't resist. Okay, I'll tell you. The march on Washington the other day, we have, on my radio show, we have Jack Posobiec. I don't know if you know Jack, he's kind of a crazy blogger type, and he was down there, he goes to these things, and he was taking pictures. Everything was really high-end, paid for, and there was all sorts of things. But there were some people there, and I wanted to say, do these kids know, as they're trotting through, being trotted out, that what they're doing will not amount to anything? That's right. Nothing. Nothing will happen. Oh, we must do this. We all come out. This is an emblem of the movement. Mass movements where we're in lurch from side to side. They go Black Lives Matter for 6 months. Where's the last time you heard of a systematic? I'm in St. Louis. I'm 10 miles from Ferguson. I was chairman of the party in Missouri when Ferguson happened. I visited the next day. No press conference. I saw where the stain was. I talked to the police officers, and they made Ferguson into hell when it was a tragedy, right? And Black Lives Matter did that. But that was supposed to be a movement. Where's that movement, right? Me Too? Me Too consumed itself. Where's that now, right? So these movements are lurching back and forth. And the most important movement in our culture is the movement that focuses on, transformational in human history ever, is that we the people are in charge, not a queen, not some sovereign. We the people, and the Constitution and the founding values. That's the key, and our movement can win, but we're going to have to work at it. Yes, sir?
I just want to know, how important do you think, last week everybody's focused on what you're talking about, one of the most important bills ever passed, and that was the Taylor Force Act. What do you feel?